we're talking about impurity, the effects of impurity. One of the effects of impurity is that it devastates every kind of good. Saint Caesarius says, "Nothing good is able to remain in man which the fire of concupiscence does not burn." So it has a very universal effect in the soul. So just as the prodigal son spent all his fortune and became debauched, so the impure lose even their gifts of nature and those of grace. So a totally impure person becomes practically like an animal. They lose charity and all the virtues. So it's a devastating thing, and it leads to divorce and remarriage, all kinds of, even murder, when the flames of desire just take over a soul. I mean, it's rare that it goes that far, but it can. This vice also destroys the intelligence in as much as it dulls the mind with regard to the knowledge of God and of virtue. So again, it reduces you to animalistic life, and therefore the only thing you know is sense knowledge in a way. I'm exaggerating. But it dulls your intellect to spiritual, immaterial things. It is what makes you the most like an animal. In other words, what we have in common most with the animals are the processes of reproduction. So in all of those tendencies. So it is, and that's why St. Thomas says that the reason why you're most ashamed of those sins is because you have acted like an animal. Even though other sins are objectively worse, sins directly against God, such as blasphemy and heresy, etc., are objectively worse, far worse. But because you have that shame that you have acted like an animal. You see, so that's the effect of it, because it's entirely material. It's based on hormones, and if the hormones were not there, you would have no attraction. So that's why they in Constantinople they would castrate the guards in the palace for fear that they would approach the ladies of the harem. There was hundreds of ladies in waiting for you know what, and so they didn't want the guards of the power of the to be approaching them. And there was one sultan who, because there was one of the ladies in waiting, a part of the harem, that apparently did some sort of fornication or something with one of the guards, because eventually they weren't not so let's say observant about castration, and he killed all of them, all of the harem, all of the ladies who killed them. So that was a brutal. I mean, that regime, that Ottoman regime, was absolutely awful. But that's what happens. And it said one of them, and it was a fairly recent one before World War I, that he spent the whole day fornicating. That was his job, the entire day, going from woman to woman. So that's what it does to you. It could do that to you. That's what it has the power to reduce you to an animal. So that's why it's devastating in that sense. It's powerful. So it makes you lose a consciousness or memory of the law of God and the benefits of God. All you do is live for that. The will becomes so weak that it becomes so depraved that it prefers vice to virtue, sensual pleasure to reason, the creature to the creator, the flesh to the spirit, remorse to peace. In other words, you'd sooner take the remorse and all the feeling of guilt than to have peace by giving it up. He prefers the earth to heaven, the devil to God, death to life, hell to heaven, and the ultimate misery of hell. All of that to eternal happiness. He prefers all of those things to eternal happiness. He strips himself of the clothing of virtue and puts on the livery of the devil. So that is where it's leading to. Now, it doesn't always get to that point, but some people, if they get into bad habits when they're teenagers or something, and young people, they never lose it, and then they go into old age with these horrible habits. And then they go to hell. They are so locked in, they just presumably go to hell for that. See? So the impure man becomes stupid and incapable of receiving counsel or reasoning. You might give it to him. He says, "Oh yes, thank you, Father," and then he goes back to what he was doing. That's when you deal with people who are addicted to impure things. They're very nice usually. Yes, oh yes, Father, yes, Father, yes, Father, and then they go back. All of the strength of both body and soul, which are made to serve the Creator, are wasted on a creature, this is the object of their lust, for concupiscence and carnal pleasures. So we are created to know, love, and serve God, and all of that is wasted on some creature. The gifts of grace are annihilated, and the baptismal promises are trodden underfoot. The nobility of the soul disappears under the weight of the dirt, and the spiritual aptitude for virtue and for great acts is dead. So you become very selfish. You often associate impurity with love. Actually, it isn't associated with that. They're considered in itself. In other words, not considering it as a sign of intimacy and friendship and marriage, but considered in itself, it is 100% selfish. Because you want something for yourself. That's what it is. Just as a piece of cake you want for yourself. So it has no intrinsic value for you. You don't make sure that the cake is doing well tonight, and there's no idea of taking care of the cake. That it is there for you to eat, and its only value is for you to eat. So it's the same thing. It's a selfishness, and that's why marriages that are based purely on sexual attraction break up very easily. Because, you get tired of one and then you go to another. You see, there's another pretty one over here. Well, and the women do it too. They get interested in somebody else. Because there always has to be something new about it. There always has to be something that is attractive about it. And you get tired of one thing, just like you might get tired of a new car that you bought. Well, let's get another car. This one I've had it with, sell this one. So it's Saint Augustine said that whenever we love something created, we always love it more before we get it and love it less after we have it. And that's true of sexual attraction. It's not true of the real love, say real love in marriage. That is, you shouldn't think of marriage as only sexual attraction. No, there is a true love that occurs between husband and wife. But if it's only based on sexual attraction, that is just doomed. And many times it is, or it's principally based on that. There might be some other compatibility, but it's principally based on that. It's doomed. See, because it's selfish. So it's something to understand about it. It's associated with love. The love is number one. Right? So those who fall into and remain in the mire of lust bury themselves in their own ruin, and that's also you'll see as you deal with the faithful and hear confessions, etc., that once someone becomes addicted to it, it is very hard for them to get out of it. If they become addicted, almost impossible. They give them all sorts of penances and fasts and this and that and this and that. Nothing works. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they pull out. But it takes an enormous effort for them to do that. So if they have this hardened habit of committing sins of impurity every single day, very difficult. So, that's a whole other thing with ascetical theology, but they need to go to confession every single week, and they need to avoid the occasions of sin. They need big penances. They should give them fasting. See, your appetite for food is much stronger than your appetite for sex. You don't realize that, but it is. Somebody said you can never have sexual relations again. Well, that's terrible news, but if you say there's no dinner, that's really, really bad. People come down with diseases or something like that, and the doctor says, "Well, you're finished." But you look for 3 times a day for food. If there is no food, that's panic. You see, your desire for food is actually stronger. So, fasting, it makes you say no to that desire, that desire for pleasure, and so you're able to say no. I will not do this, and that trains the will to say no to the sexual pleasures. So Saint Cyril said, "By lust the flesh decays, the strength of the soul is beaten down, the passion for vices is stimulated. The yoke of the virtues is too heavy, so it is shaken off. The parade of passions enters the heart, and the splendor of reason is darkened. The sinful lusts brought down Samson, who was so strong, and overcame David, who was so holy, and seduced Solomon, who triumphed over this, the lust triumphed over this king who was so wise." So Samson was really strong, but Delilah came along, and that was the end of it. And David, holy David, Bathsheba, she came along. And Solomon, wise, given wisdom, but he fell for the pagan girls. It can happen to anybody. So don't think that as priests, I would never do that. I don't know. I know many priests, traditional priests, who have fallen very, very badly. Don't think that it could not happen to you. All right? So don't think it's only Novus Ordo priests that get into that sort of thing. There was a recent thing on the internet about let's say a priest of a large traditionalist society, who was attracted to young persons, children actually, and said that to his superiors, and then he was made a district superior. And other things happened. See, so I mean, the don't think it can't happen to you. The devil has a particular interest in destroying a priest, because if he destroys a priest, he will destroy many other souls with the priest. It scandalizes the weak when a priest sins publicly, and especially with regard to those things. It scandalizes the weak, so the weak say, "Oh, this is all nonsense." You see, he doesn't even believe it either. Look, he's running around with this and that and this and that. Scandalizes the weak. So a lot of people just don't go to church anymore. They're disgusted. So there's a big victory with clergy. So he has a special interest. And the weakest door in your city-state, you might say, is the door of lust. So he's going to pound at that. That will crash first. Wham, just like that, if you are not on guard. If he fails there, then he'll go after other things, like the faith, things that will really shake down the whole building. So don't think you're going to be exempt from temptation. It's going to be worse as you progress in the spiritual life. As a matter of fact, one of the signs of entering the perfect state is temptations against the faith and temptations to blasphemy. One of the signs, because the devil is really working. A soul, especially that of a cleric, in a perfect state, the highest state of spiritual perfection, is a very powerful instrument of God, like a saint. I mean, they have effects that last for centuries. Saints, good effects. So he's a very powerful instrument in the service of God, and so the devil has a special interest in taking him down. So usually the impurity is left aside, and then he goes after the big stuff. So pride, if he can get you to deny the faith. So lust poisons by the breath of a dragon. This is St. Cyril still. It calls with sweetness. It penetrates with smoothness. It takes over and kills. So its approach is very nice, and then it kills you. It ravages everything, this is still St. Cyril, in an irreversible way. Practically irreversible, since addiction to it is almost always irreversible. Addiction. St. Cyprian said, that was St. Cyril, this is St. Cyprian. Impurity is a stinking passion. It sets fire to conscience. It is the mother of impenitence. Very true. The ruin of the most beautiful age, which is youth, the degeneration of the human race, and the sworn enemy of blood and of family, because it leads to many other sins, such as infidelity and even murder, breakup of marriages. The Book of Wisdom, now they neither keep life nor marriage undefiled. St. Ambrose said, when someone begins to hand himself to this vice, he begins to lose the true faith. And it is true that you become blind, and the true faith is an irritation to somebody who wants to be impure. Henry VIII is a good example. He had the faith. He was, wanted nothing to do with Luther. But soon as the women came along, then that was a whole different story. The Catholic faith penetrates down into your conscience, into your mind. You cannot consent to evil desires of any kind, even revenge or anything. No desires. It goes deep into the soul, and that's a pain if you want to be fooling around. See, if you want lust, so then you dump it. See? And then, for example, Protestantism, well, we're all sinners and God does not expect us to obey the commandments, Martin Luther. All we have to do is trust in him, and we're already saved because he paid the bill on Calvary. We're all washed. You see? In the sense that we're all sinners inside, but there's a big blanket over us he doesn't look at. That's Protestantism in a few words. So, if there's a little lust here and there, well, God knows we can't keep the commandments, it's just not possible. The Albigensians, too, had some sort of way of justifying their lust. The Catholic Church is the only religion in the whole world that does not condone divorce and remarriage. In the Greek Orthodox, you have 3 strikes and then you're out. They let you go get divorced twice, and then you can marry the 3rd time, and then you're done. It's true. St. John Damascene said, impurity is the metropolis of all evils. St. Basil said, impurity is the bait of the devil, which leads to death. It is the mother of sin and the nurse of the perpetual worm, meaning that of hell, the worm of conscience. St. Cyril said, raging lust sees nothing, it has lost its eyes. St. Paul said, the sensual man perceiveth not those things that are of the Spirit of God, for it is foolishness to him, and he cannot understand because it is spiritually examined. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. So you see that they're all saying that it has other effects, blinding effects, not merely an attachment to pleasure. So let's see. I think, are we done? 25 after, right? Is that what yeah, okay. I think we're done. Okay.